What if you could sit down and learn about your financial future from a world-famous economist, college professor, presidential economic advisor, and New York Times best-selling author on economic trends? Even better, what if you were also a multi-millionaire entrepreneur, a man who walked his talk, earning his first million before the age of 26 and his first 10 million before 30? You can. His name is Paul Zane Pilzer. He completed college in 3 years and received his MBA from Wharton at age 22. At age 24, he became a professor at New York University, where he taught for 20 years. While employed as Citibank's youngest vice president ever, Pilzer started several entrepreneurial businesses, which helped him earn his first million before age 26 and his first 10 million before age 30. Over the last 2 decades, he has started and/or taken public more than 5 companies in the areas of software, education, and financial services. Paul Zane Pilzer has been an appointed economic advisor to 2 United States presidents. His first book, Other People's Money, exposed the savings and loan crisis. His next book, Unlimited Wealth, predicted the economic shifts and wealth creation opportunities of the 1990s and 2000s. After reading this book, Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart and then the richest man in the world, said that he was, quote, amazed at Pilzer's business capacity and his ability to put it into layman's terms, end quote. In his New York Times bestseller, God Wants You to Be Rich, The Theology of Economics, Professor Pilzer explains how and why everyone can enjoy material and spiritual wealth in our abundant world. In 2004, Pilzer received an honorary doctorate for his research into the wellness industry and was declared a wellness guru by the New York Times. His books, The Next Trillion and The Wellness Revolution, explain how the wellness industry, still in its infancy, will reach $1 trillion by the year 2010. Today, Professor Pilzer is recognized as one of the top researchers, trend forecasters, and economic experts in the world. In his latest book, The Next Millionaires, he explains why we are witnessing a millionaire population explosion over the next 10 years that will create 10 million new millionaires in the U.S. alone. Listen now to an exclusive interview with Paul Zane Pilzer. Discover just how and why a vast amount of new wealth is about to be created, but more importantly, how you can be a part of it.
Paul, thank you for joining us today. I've just read your new book, The Next Millionaires. Your economic predictions are exciting and almost unnerving. What drove you to make such predictions? And secondly, why did you title your new book, The Next Millionaires?
I write about economic trends. I write about what's new in business, what's coming down the pike, what companies are going to grow. But more than perhaps anything else I've written before, the conclusion of this book is that 10 million people are about to become the next millionaires in the United States. And it seemed fitting that since that's the actionable conclusion of my current economic forecasting, The Next Millionaires just seemed to be the right title.
It's a great title, but what does it mean? 10 million millionaires in the next 10 years? I mean, really, how is that possible?
We're looking at 10 million millionaires, and we probably should put that in perspective. In 1991, when our country was 215 years old, there were 3.6 million millionaires. 3.6 million millionaires in 1991. Over the next decade, to 2001, that number doubled. As I look ahead in the next 10 years, I can clearly see, unlike the 90s, we're not going to double the number of millionaires. We're going to more than double. We're going to take the number of millionaires from about 8.5 million today to 18.5 million. 10 million new millionaires. Households in the United States will achieve a net worth of more than $1 million in the next decade.
Paul, that's a pretty wild prediction given what sounds like all the bad economic news and gloom you hear today. I'm no economist, so please explain how you came to this conclusion.
I guess I should take a moment and explain where the millionaires fit in the entire U.S. economy. In 1991, U.S. household wealth, which is a number tracked very closely by the Federal Reserve, was $13 trillion. In 2001, household wealth had risen to $40 trillion, more than tripling from 13 trillion in 1991. From 2001 to 2005, we added another 8 trillion to household wealth. So today, U.S. household wealth is about $48 trillion. What I'm projecting, looking at the entire U.S. economy, is that in the next 10 years, from 2006 to 2016, we're going to increase U.S. household wealth from 48 trillion to 100 trillion. And actually, that really is a conservative number. Well, you should be asking, who's going to get the 52 trillion? About 10 trillion of the household wealth increase over the next decade will go to 10 million new millionaires. If you do the math, 10 trillion of household wealth divided by 10 million millionaires is $1 million apiece.
Hold on. I'm not very good at math. Just what do you mean?
We're going to create about 10 million millionaires, meaning 10 million families today who are not yet members of the $1 Million Net Worth Club are about to become new millionaires in the United States. The biggest change that's happening in the millionaires or the number of families that will become millionaires in the next decade is what I call the democratization of American wealth. If I was talking 50 years ago and told you the economy was going up X billion or trillion dollars, you just assume, oh, the Rockefellers, the Astors, the Vanderbilts, the people with the money are going to get all that wealth. And yet in the 1990s, we more than doubled the amount of U.S. millionaires in just a decade. And what we're really seeing is a democratization of who's getting all the money. The reason is the people with the most money today often didn't have any money when they were born. Run through the people today who are the richest people in America. Virtually none of them had $1 when they were born. Whether it be Sam Walton, because his descendants, when you look at his wealth, would be the absolute number 1, 2, and 3 wealthiest people in the United States. Or you jump to Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. None of these people had any money. They were middle-class people when they were born, and in 10 or 20 or 30 years became the richest people in the world. The people who have the wealth today have made the wealth in the last 1, 2, and 3 decades. And that is accelerating so much that it's easy to see this democratization of who's making the money in the U.S. and see that the 10 million new millionaire projection that I'm making for the next 10 years is, if anything, fairly conservative. One of the most exciting things we see now among the people who are becoming new millionaires is they're teachers more than they're business people. They learn about a new product, new service, new method of doing something. They adopt it for themselves and their family, and they go, this is great. But they don't stop there. They then go out and teach new people what they just learned.
So, helping yourself to a better life by learning a new way and sharing this concept with others, you can create a huge business opportunity in an area you call intellectual distribution. This just happens to be the direct selling model. Please explain.
In 1990, I wrote a book called Unlimited Wealth. At that time, I had no idea what direct selling was. In fact, I'd heard the names of these companies and always wondered, what do they sell? What do they do? I never knew anyone in direct selling. But in Unlimited Wealth, I wrote about how wealth was created mainly by people who distributed things versus people who made things. In 1990, if you bought a $100 product in a store, $85 of the product was in its distribution cost, and $15 was its fully loaded manufacturing cost. That was a big difference since the 1960s. When I was growing up in the 1960s and going to school, when you bought something at retail, 50% was manufacturing costs and 50% was distribution costs. That's why in the 1990s, the people who got very, very rich were the people who found better ways to distribute things versus better ways to make things. If you find a 20% better way to distribute things, and distribution's 85% or $85 of the $100 price, you can save $17, 20%. But if you find a better way to make things when manufacturing cost was only 15%, you could only make 3%, 20% of the $15 manufacturing cost. So you see that the fortune shifted from 1960s to 1990s from people who made things to people who distributed things. In 1961, Sam Walton left his store, retailing had been probably one of the oldest business professions, and went out to find a better way to distribute retail goods to rural America. 30 years later, his company was not only the largest retailer in the nation, he was the wealthiest person in the world. The reason he was able to do that is that if you look at a product in the 1990s or today, about 85% of the retail price of the product is made up of the distribution cost, and only 15% is manufacturing. Or a man like Fred Smith in 1976 who started Federal Express, an airline that refused to fly people. It only flew little packages and envelopes and boxes, and he became an overnight billionaire. Or Ross Perot, who was known for EDS computer business, where he made $4.5 billion very quickly, but it's a computer business where he never made software and never made hardware. EDS distributed other people's hardware and other people's software to consumers who needed them. So the great fortunes of the 1990s, I said, would be made by people who distributed things. That's when I heard from the direct sales industry. And they said, you write about distribution, and that fits our model. I called this business physical distribution, the physical distribution of a product to a consumer, exactly what Walmart does. So people listening to this might think, oh, wow, distribution, I should go into Walmart. Not so fast. The opportunity I've been writing about for 2 decades in physical distribution and all those people who made fortunes in physical distribution has come and gone. Walmart does a very good job taking a very good product all the way from China and bringing it to every neighborhood in the United States. The opportunity in distribution still exists today, but it's not in physical distribution, it's in intellectual distribution. Teaching people about new products and services that they either didn't know existed or didn't know were now affordable. And intellectual distribution is where the greatest fortunes are being made and will continue to be made for at least the next 1, perhaps 2 decades. It's an interesting paradigm shift. Today, most money in the product is in whoever intellectually teaches you that the product exists or is now affordable, not who makes the product and not who physically distributes the product to your door.
So the new trend is to distribute products made by other people. In other words, you're using your head, not your pocketbook. Intellectual distribution. What other major business trends can we take advantage of in the next 10 years?
So what we see are 3 very interesting things happening that tell us where the great opportunities are going to be in the next decade. First, intellectual distribution. A second industry is the internet business. The internet business is about to go from the 5, 10, 15, sometimes 30 hours some of us spend on the internet per week to the 168 hours of the week. From when we go out to the dry cleaner and let them know we're coming, so they'll get it all ready for us and hand it when we get to the door, and they'll use our cell phone to swap and take the money so we don't have to handle the paperwork and the credit card. 2, we're thinking of a restaurant, and 5 will come on our internet handheld device and tell us where we want to go. 2, we're waiting for a bus, let the bus driver know we're coming here, don't go to stations where people aren't. The internet business is about to increase, I was going to say 5, 10-fold, but that's such an understatement. When you look how little the internet affects every aspect of our life, particularly the aspects where we spend money. We all talk about the internet. I think the last I saw was about 2.5% of retail sales. Well, all retail sales should be internet-based in some way because you can learn about it, you can process it, you can transact it, and you can see that the internet business itself is going to be a great opportunity area for any area of business and any people who get there first on the massive shift we're going to see where the internet becomes 168 hours a week of our lives and greatly improves our lives doing that. The third area is the home-based business move. Driven by the unit of technology shifting from the mainframe computer to the personal computer at our desk, wherever that desk is, home-based businesses now can have equal or better technology. Remember, years ago they used to say, oh, he worked at home, like there must be something slow. He can't get the job at Citibank. There's something wrong with them. And of course now the sharpest, richest, and the best people we know in economics are the people who work at home. See the dramatic shift we've had to what it means to work at home versus work at an office in just the last 10 years. So home-based business boom, internet business boom, intellectual distribution boom, these are all the driving things that are going to drive so many different industries and create so many of the next 10 million millionaires we're about to create in the United States.
Paul, that all sounds great. But how can the average person take advantage of today's new technologies, build a business, and still have time for their families?
That phenomenon with home-based business is just getting started. And it's being led by the people who start companies. Underlying the shift to home-based business is a massive shift in technology. When I got out of school 30 years ago, they made tools for people who worked in big companies. Today, they're focused on an individual user making an individual Apple or IBM PC and a better and better tool for that person, and that person's totally connected to every other PC through the internet. And you see right away that the unit of technology has changed from an IBM 370 mainframe that cost $2 million and served hundreds of thousands of people to a $400, $500. Sometimes you could really splurge on a PC today and spend $1,000 and get something much more powerful than the IBM 370 mainframe of before. But more important, when you have that powerful computer tool, you're at the cutting edge. You can now do business far better than someone who's working in a large company, who has to deal with the overhead, has to deal with getting to work every day. I mean, 25% of the workday is spent just getting to and from work. And then another 50% inside the workplace is wasted having a good time talking to people. But some people go, I really don't want to have a good time in this office. I want to be with my kids. I want to take them out and play. I want to work at home, and I want to go to work on the 30 seconds it takes me to walk to the area of my home I call my home office. I want to do my work in an hour or two, and I want to get back to be with my family. And for those people, home-based business today is not just a lifestyle, it's also the most efficient way to do business. And it's all driven by the fact that the unit of technology that everyone's focusing on to make better is not a mainframe computer or a big office building. It's a person individually working one-on-one, either alone or in an office, but obviously that person can work much better at home.
Working from home sounds great. I know you work from home. So what do you love the most about working out of your house?
I love working at home, and I love it the most when my daughter or son comes in and goes, "What are you doing, Daddy?" And they know that I'm on the phone. They have to wait. And that makes it more special because since they're not allowed to talk when I'm working on the phone, they wait a few minutes. And then when I'm done and put the phone down, boy, are they excited. Because not only am I focused on them, I made it valuable that time we're about to spend together. They don't just take for granted that Daddy's there to take them biking, take them skiing, and do all the great things we do. They know I work, they see me work, and they really appreciate the time even more that I spend with them as I do. There's not a chance I could ever do that if I had to go to an office or work outside of a home. And why the real values of a home-based business, even though most people today do it because they make the most money with the least amount of overhead, the real values come from having your family watch you work, and as they age, if they choose to come into the business and work with you.
That's incredible. Being able to do business, yet spending valuable time with your kids. Is that what direct selling is all about? In your new book, you really single out direct selling as the preeminent form of home business that will produce so many of these new millionaires. So what is at the core of direct selling that makes it such a powerful business for our times?
If you talk to a manufacturer today, they will tell you that the greatest bottleneck they have is not the great new products they make, it's how to teach people that they exist. People like to do things the old way. They learn something like, I just learned how to do that, but there's a new method. No, there can't be. I learned it only 3 months ago. If it must be new to me, don't tell me there's something new. People fight change. We all have this nostalgic, like just because grandma did it that way, it must be better. It's interesting. From baking to driving or anything, we have this nostalgic view that the good old days were better. Well, the good old days had manure in the streets, diphtheria, polio was the big thing. You went to church on Sunday and prayed when they told you a third of the kids would get polio that it wasn't your kid. That's how good the good old days were. The days today are so much better, and yet people have this nostalgic leaning for the old days, and that causes them to fight change. They don't want to learn a new method. They're going to shut down. They fight learning new things. They look for things that reinforce the old method. And television, radio, surfing the internet, even reading a book or magazine to some extent is something they do passively that is not where they're going to learn a new way of doing something. The only way we have currently that teaches people the new method is one-on-one communication. Something happens that my biology friends say has to do with pheromones, where they meet someone and there's something in a one-on-one meeting in a room. It's why people fly across the country, even though we all have video conferencing in business, but they have to fly to go meet someone for something real important, because there's something that we don't know how it all goes, but when the people get one-on-one, that's when you got a chance to change the way someone's doing something. Anyone professional in sales will tell you if you're changing or selling the first sale, the first product, you better be in front of the person. That's the power of direct selling. Direct selling is both the oldest method of sales or communications before any type of technology, but it's also the new and the only method we have today to change someone's paradigm, to teach them about a new product, new service, new method, new way of doing something that they weren't going to get by just reading a magazine, by going on the internet and surfing, and certainly not by watching television. It's the opportunity that we see so many Fortune 500 companies jumping onto, because the Fortune 500 companies are realizing that they come out with these new products and services. Their engineers do a tremendous job designing and building the product, but then they have no way to tell the customer it's really a different or better product other than one-on-one communication. And there's something so truthful about one-on-one communication. You can't lie. You can always get someone to make up one ad or one type of TV commercial and claim this or claim that and multiply it by millions. But it doesn't work one-on-one, because one person goes out and throws out some new idea and the person goes, that doesn't make any sense to me. You demoralize them. Next person, that doesn't make any sense to me. And all of a sudden, after 3-4 times, the guy doesn't want to go out and sell it anymore because he knows it's not making sense to the people they're communicating with. So we find that direct selling is both a pure and the best and most efficient method of teaching people about new products and services that will improve their lives. And it's no longer people doing direct selling like it might have been 30, 40, 50 years ago outside of the big companies. We see the largest corporations in America lining up to get their products distributed via direct selling. Direct sales seems to be the wave of the 21st century and how people are going to distribute new products and services. And the greatest opportunity is going to be in products and services that don't yet exist. People in direct sales tell me, Paul, what should I be selling 10 years from now? I go, ask me 5 years from now, because that's when it's going to be invented.
So you can't see into the future, huh? But you can make predictions by recognizing historic economical trends. You've spent your life researching these trends and teaching millions how to take advantage of them. As an educator, you inspire, motivate, and most importantly, teach people how to better themselves. Is this why you're truly dedicated to the direct selling industry?
One of the things I like so much about direct selling is that people think they're learning some business or some product, but what they're really learning is how to learn new things. Direct selling, someone spends some time and teaches you something and is really teaching you not just to know how to do it, but how to go out and teach it to other people. And in doing so, they're also increasing your generic skill base in your ability to learn new things and then to teach other people new things.
Okay, Paul, one last question if you don't mind. Bottom line, what made you take time out of your incredibly busy schedule to write The Next Millionaires and to do this interview with us today? What's the real mission in it for you?
It is my sincerest hope that in the knowledge that you've learned here today, some of that knowledge will spur you to take action to becoming one of these new 10 million millionaires. Because while you go out to become a millionaire often for your own gain or your own family or to spend more time with your kids, ultimately the people that drive our economy, the people that make the best food, housing, shelter, and happiness for my kids and all the other kids and people in the United States are the people who are the new millionaires. For they're the ones who go out and take the initiative to bring a better service or product at a lower price to millions more consumers. So when I say I sincerely wish that you become one of the 10 million millionaires, I don't just mean it like I'd like to see you get rich. I'd like to see you go add to the U.S. economy to have a better life, because that's what's going to happen if you become one of the next 10 million millionaires. You greatly improve the lives of everyone in our great nation and everyone in your local community. I wrote the book, The Next Millionaires, to bring it down to an individual level. Because to sit here and tell you that household wealth is going from 48 trillion to 100 trillion is a ho-hum number. Or that the U.S. gross domestic product is going from $13 trillion a year, 14 trillion to 25 trillion, you go, oh, okay, that's good. But when I start talking about individuals and that there'll be 10 million people making $1 million new net worth in the next 10 years, that's when you can relate to it. Now I understand why I need to take action now to do something to make sure I'm one of the next 10 million millionaires, as opposed to worried about gross domestic product or household wealth or all the other things economists like me love to deal with. As an economist, we deal with the billions or trillions of growth in our economy. But people aren't worried about the economy, they're worried about their economy. More than anything else, what can they do in this new economy? How can they succeed and take care of their families? We are entering an era right now that there will be 10 million new millionaires created in the United States in just the next 10 years. And I find when I bring it down to that personal level, the numbers take on a whole new dimension. For people can now see in the trillions of household wealth or trillions of gross domestic product, more importantly, where they fit, where their opportunity is, what they're doing now, and how they can become one of the next 10 million millionaires about to be created in the United States.
Well, Paul, you have really opened my eyes to what could be a bright new future. I know that I would certainly love to be one of those next 10 million millionaires. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
It is our sincere hope you enjoyed listening to this interview with best-selling author, professor, economist, and multimillionaire businessperson Paul Zane Pilzer. For information on starting a new business, please contact the person who gave you this program.